Hello, I'm Dr. Thomas Maples, and welcome back to A Sacred Journey. Today we're going to explore the concept of belief, especially as it relates to hope and our ability to see light in the face of depression. An area that I see clinically prevalent, especially as it relates to the symptoms so common to depression as we explored in the last podcast, was this idea of hope. Hope, in many ways, is a spirit that seems to elude us in our daily quest to create bliss from what is really a prevalently seen existential angst. So, when it seems to be a collective plight to ask those big questions that may not have the most simple answers, but in the interim, they aren't that complex either. How can we find hope and belief in the nature of the very questions that seem to pull at the soul, pull for us to make sense of in order to create a life full of well-being and meaning? Now, this question itself is rhetorical. It is simply meant to get your mind thinking in a different direction, one that is primed to solve a problem versus to create more problems. Now, when it comes to creating belief in a journey well taken, what we need to do is get into touch with a foundational element that grounds us. A lot of times, this element will not be found within the mind's eye, but instead will be found in the external environment. Nature is a very grounding force within itself, and I encourage you to take a moment after listening to this to engage in this exercise that I'll speak of in one moment. Because it's in my hope that in engaging in this exercise that you will find a grounding experience, especially as it relates to the way that we view time versus the way that nature engages time. Go outside or simply look through your window. Find a point of reference, something natural. You may be surrounded by homes, and that's okay. If you look at the homes, what did it take to create those? What form of labor did it take to create that? To give you safety, to give you security. If you see nature outside, that's a good thing. What did it take to create that? How many years? How many months did it take to create the home? How many years did it take to create the tree or the river or the mountains that are before you? We need only fathom the millennia it takes for nature to create its beauty, to begin to feel grounded within the short amount of time we may have on this earth. Our time truly pales in comparison with the earth's patience as it endeavors to create its beauty. This reminds me of a quote from a mystic poet, Hafiz, who stated that even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. Just think for one moment what we could do with a little patience like that. While there's beauty to be found at each moment, there appears to be an ever-present clock that ticks, that distracts the soul from its grounding force. All too often, we may be exposed by television or social media about medication, joylessness, anger, lack of brotherhood, lack of belonging, indifference. We may also see the more positive aspects of things like meditation or mindfulness as a means to exercise to get rid of the daily stresses that seem also prevalent these days. But why are these so prevalent? I believe the answer may be simpler than the complexity that buys for our attention on the daily basis. In psychology, we have a concept called the ego. That's the sense of I that is grounded to the present moment, right here, right now. It does not see the sky's light beyond the shadow it casts. However, once it realizes that it overshadows itself, this realization creates the pathway needed to re engage the light of a life giving force. What is that life giving force? Well, if we take a lesson from plant life, we could begin to notice that if you put a plant within the shadow of a larger plant, it will stretch its arms to touch the embrace of the sun, the life giving force of the light that helps it to grow. This force is more significant ultimately than the feeble creation the ego grasps to secure itself in its uncertain reality. In psychology, this greater force, or this force that we could compare with the sun in the example of the plant, this force is the idea of the self. Now, in the story Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, it talks about how the young prince, the young Brahmin, yearns to find himself. He yearns to find this larger self. In the story, it speaks of the concepts of Atman, that which lies within man or woman or humanity, in relation to a higher archetypical construct called Brahman. Now, when these two things unite, there's a convergence of sort where a cosmic dance takes place. We have the small self and the big self, the ego and the supraordinate, or what Freud would have termed the superego, begins to take part in a cosmic dance with one another as a beautiful ritual in which internal and external growth can occur. When we visit this symbolically, we shouldn't see the ego being greater than the self or the self being greater than the ego. They're collectively linked to the foundation of life that not only sustains us in this journey, but also helps create the shadow by which we have to navigate to find the greater direction the light can bring to our future. Now, Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." What a beautiful concept. Dream, act, believe, receive. I don't know of any other way to create beauty. Do you? If you looked upon the trees, a mountain, a river, what did it take to create those? A construct, a belief, a dream, maybe an archetype, whatever you want to call it, and then action. Whether that action happens from the earth or within, once you have the dream or the vision, there has to be a belief in action in order to create and receive. Thus, one of my foundational beliefs about the treatment of depression goes that we don't pull ourselves out of a depressive state, we push through it through action. This brings me to another quote by a French author by the name of Anatole France. He writes, "If the path be beautiful, let us not ask where it leads." Now, how can depression be beautiful? Well, depression is simply the pressing in of the soul. It pushes us inside to create lessons about what is there. A lot of times, depression or depressive symptoms or bad feelings, sadness, anxiety can come from a place where we may not be in touch with the events or the series of events that may have caused them. We simply may be unconscious of it. This is what lies in the shadow. This is what lies in emotional baggage. But it's up to us to sift through those ashes in that bag to find the glowing embers to create the movement towards the self that ultimately allows the ego to find the light of its greater good. I believe wholeheartedly that this is why we oftentimes will get lost in order to find the nature of the soul, or that ever calling ontological question, such as, who am I? What's the meaning of all this? As we create the storyline of life that we live. Now let's explore one exercise to find 3 good things to engage our inner hope. As you might know, depression can be inundating. It can tax us at a foundational level of hope. Here is one exercise to focus the mind away from depression, re-engage the belief you have in yourself, and hopefully find a little hope in the process. Take a journal and journal one good thing that happened to you today. Now think about what was your contribution to create it. What did you do to manifest that good thing that happened in your life today? What action did you take to make that happen? When you have one good thing and you've thought thoroughly about what you did to bring that to your life or manifest that in your life, write a prayer, a poem, a paragraph. Just make sure that you focus it on gratitude and thanks for that thing that was created in your life at the expense of the time that you took to work it, to manifest it, to create it. Now repeat this exercise 3 times. With this, you've engaged in 3 steps to create a little hope in your life. It may not be much, but when you begin to create these exercises through time, belief and hope do become established through repetition in positive aspects of life over time. Now, this does not negate the negative things that happen, but the more positives that we build in life, the more successes we have to look back on. And this is the antithesis of depression. I hope you enjoyed this exercise and this little foray into our ability to choose to see light even in the face of depression. May blessings find you, my friends, on this beautiful journey that we undertake to advance confidently down the pathways that lead us to our dreams. Goodbye for now, and thank you for joining.